Hello! It worked! Hello and welcome to episode 6 of Build on Open Source, the show that talks you through and walks you through the latest open source projects and news. And of course, I'm here with my co-host, my lovely co-host.
Who are you?
Derek. Although, Derek, there's something different about you.
Yes. Hi, Rick. It's good to be back on the show. I missed the last episode. I went away on holiday and grew a beard. This is the holiday beard. So I hope everybody likes my holiday beard. I'm like 50-50.
No, it's good. It suits you.
I'm not sure.
It does suit you, although now you're off brand. Sorry. I feel pressure. I feel pressure to have my own goatee beard now.
Well, now that people can tell the difference, Rick, not Rick.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So you had a week off, did you?
I did. I went to the fabulous island. So for anybody watching, I live in Perth, Western Australia, and there's a fabulous island just off the west coast of Western Australia called Rottnest. And on Rottnest, there's these little marsupials called quokkas, and they're quite tame. And so you can go and get a selfie with a quokka. I don't actually.
What do they taste like?
You do not eat the quokkas. You're not supposed to touch them or feed them either.
Okay.
But yes, they're very cute. So that's what I did, Rick.
Awesome.
And might I also add, while I'm speaking to everybody watching, Rick did all of the pre-production for today's show. He hit all the right buttons. He did everything, and it was seamless. So well done.
It was. I have had a good master. Okay, so for folks who are tuned in, if you haven't joined before, this is the show where we start off with a roundup of open source projects and news. Derek and me will do demos, and then we're very, very lucky to have a special guest this week. Derek, who's our special guest?
Well, we are very fortunate to be joined by Lars Jacobsson and his plant. More.
Oh yes.
To be revealed.
His off-center plant.
Yes. Yes. It's quite crooked. But more to be revealed later in the show. If you haven't seen the show before, welcome. If you have seen the show before, welcome back.
So in the chat, please tell us where you're from. Tell us what your favorite open source project is. And as we go through today, please ask questions, especially when Lars comes on. He's going to show us some of his open source tools. We've mentioned them in previous shows. They're awesome. So make sure that you use the opportunity to ask a question. So we also have...
Speaking of questions.
Yes.
So we have our poll. This is a live poll. So people who are in the chat... now is your chance to answer the following question. What do you currently use for infrastructure as code? So I use ClickOps, so I'm going to put it into the chat file.
What?
I'm a ClickOps kind of guy. So if you're in the chat, please interact. What are you, Rick? You put
I'm CDK all day long.
Oh,
so
CDK.
I'm CDK, so I'm putting CDK.
There we go. We've got one CDK and one ClickOps. Anybody else listening?
Terraform, watching, of course. Yes,
I have the Ivory Coast. Somebody from the Ivory Coast. Oh, Terraform. Put it in. That was Terraform 3. Pablo Crypto. You have to put the number in. So if you put in number 3, we'll get your Terraform vote. Thanks, Fadl Bidiga, for putting your vote in. Yes, there we go.
Oh, look.
Nice one.
I had
Pablo.
a feeling I had a feeling Terraform
Yes.
might run away. So this poll will
Yep.
be up all time. So feel free to keep putting your votes in, and we'll come back later on and we'll see which
See how
one.
we're going. Okay, let's remove that.
Okay, I think let's start off with the first part of the show, news of the week. Yes.
Excellent. You're getting
Another
this.
seamless transition. Okay, so Derek,
Yes.
what projects have you been looking at?
So, Rick, I've looked at your blog, Stop Screen Share, Present Screen Share. I've looked at your blog from 2 weeks ago, which looks a bit like this. So, people who don't know or haven't heard of Rick's blog. So, Rick writes this fantastic open source blog every week, like a machine that he is.
Exactly.
And don't know how he does it. And it's all on dev.to. So if you're really interested in open source and you read this blog, read this blog. And so the two things I'm going to pick out from the one 2 weeks ago is the first one actually was a bit crazy. So this is it here. So it was a CFN teleport, so a CloudFormation teleport. And apologies, I actually tried to get this running earlier before the show, and it threw an error. So it's probably my fault because I'm a numpty. But in essence, what CFN teleport does, it takes your CloudFormation stack and another CloudFormation stack, and it goes. You say you give it a resource ID, resource IDs, one or many, of stuff in stack 1, and it teleports it or moves it into stack 2, which is super handy. Because you're always like, oh, I wish I had exactly that, which I've defined over here in this one, when you build a new project or you're doing something like that. So I had tried to have a play with it, and unfortunately, Pebcac, me, didn't get it working, but it's easy to install. It's just it's a XE, not an XE. It's you brew, install it on a Mac, and it's all documentation and is there. So check it out, CFO and teleport, and hopefully you'll have a better better luck than I did getting it working.
So Derek, I'm having visions, okay, of Star Trek, okay, where they can't teleport because the whatever reason, right? They're either too far away or they're moving. So I'm thinking maybe it didn't work because the stacks were too far apart, maybe, or they were too dynamic.
Yeah. Well, there was a theory of the Mobius. There's a twist in fabric of time and space. When time becomes a loop, that is possibly what.
Okay, so there we go.
So yeah. So if you want to see it working, it's here. So this is the actual CFN teleport GitHub site.
Cool.
And the author is from Germany. Yes. So it's Daniel Schroeder from Germany who's created this. And I think the concept is fantastic. And I'm sorry, Daniel, I couldn't get to work. But I'm a lesser mortal, of course. The second one, so that's the first one for this week, Rick.
Nice.
The second one, I was a bit conflicted on this one, on which one to show. But again, I want to show the CloudWatch Insights, because why I picked this one is because it's not only a command line tool in Python. So we like command line tools in the show. We're a big fan of ASCII art. So I'm like, yeah, I'm into this. Let's have a go at this. But it also has it's also published the API that it uses as well, which is extra points in my opinion. You know, a lot of cool command line tools are being published that do some very great stuff. And if you don't know what they are, look at our past episodes. But this also has its API. So basically, it reads a config file, which you define here, telling you timestamps, what do you want back from CloudWatch, and then you make the call using ACWI, and you point it at a CloudWatch group, and it will return you all the information that you need. So you can be quite sophisticated, and there's and define stuff like where you want the output to go, what sort of duration you want to query for. So it's a nice little tool, and it's got nice documentation as well for the API. So again, it documents the API as well as the command line interface. So I really liked it. Nicely put out and nicely documented. And the author here is Valmichiaro.
Yes, very exciting.
So,
like it.
Yes,
so that was my project last week. That was my favorite one last week, the last episode as well. I really like this, and I haven't tried it out yet, but I want to try it because I want to try and see if I can use the tool, and then start creating a workflow which I can automate using Apache Airflow to try and take some of the CloudWatch logs using that API, and then basically then putting it into somewhere else. So I'm it's in the idea stage at the moment, but very cool. Thank you, Derek, for those.
Well, there actually was one more, and why I was conflicted is because
what was the other one?
At the bottom of this, there was a certain Ricardo Suarez who'd written some cool stuff about Apache Airflow.
Oh,
and I was like, that was cool because I was reading it this here.
Yes, that one
there. I was like, that's an excellent blog. So not only does Ricardo write the open source blog every week, but he also writes fantastic content on Apache Airflow. So check out that as well.
This was that was an interesting ride, that one, because when going through it, I discovered a bug. And obviously the great thing about open source projects is that you can just log an issue, right? So that issue has been logged, it's been looked at, and I provided a workaround in that blog post, but then hopefully that will get incorporated into the actual release. So yeah, it's really cool thing. So thanks for that, Derek. I feel very humbled. Feel very humble. So let me just very quickly now walk through this week's, which will be published on Monday for folk who are wanting to get their hands on these. So this is the first look at the next newsletter. So there's a few projects that I want to look at. Okay. So the first one, if I scroll through it, is this one here. The lovely named AWS CloudFormation controller for Flux. Now, Flux is typically something you associate with Cloud Native and Kubernetes, right? And allows you to do GitOps. So basically, you store your configuration files in Git, and then it basically does the whole process of doing the Kubernetes apply and making everything work. Okay, all good, all fantastic. Let me just get this project up, which is this one here. Yeah, and well, we as Derek said, we love good documentation. This has got great documentation, very detailed documentation, and it's also got, for the first time I've seen it, documentation via a GIF file, right? So this walks you through a demo of it. So I don't need to do that, which is really cool. But basically, if you want to use Flux with CloudFormation, this is the project for you. And the demo actually within the repo, but also what this little animated GIF walks you through, is how you can use Flux CD, create your Git repositories with your YAML files, and then basically it deploys them, and then when you make a change, it then updates the stack. So really nice, really like that, and well worth checking out.
Is it a GitHub action?
No, it's not a GitHub. It's not a GitHub action. It's basically Flux CD. Flux CD manages all that, right? So that's the kind of the workflow stuff. So it's pretty cool, man. Yeah. Nice. It's. I mean, I've been meaning Flux. Is one of those tools I've been meaning to look at because it seems to be more and more in my horizon. Every time I look at Kubernetes or look at something else, it's either Argo or Flux comes up. So, but Flux seems simpler. Maybe that's wrong. If you're watching and you're in the chat, maybe you've got your own opinions. So let me know what you think. But I think this is a really cool project. So that's the first project, Derek. Then the second project, which actually I've managed to get a demo working, hopefully, is Threat Composer. Now, if you ask anyone here at Amazon what the most important job we do is, that they should tell you security. They should. And it's true. And one of the things that I really love is that, and I've talked about this in the past when I've done some talks about how we do this, how we build products at Amazon. But before we start a line of code, we build the threat model. And so we've, and that's really important, so that you start thinking about security from the beginning. And so but creating your threat model is actually a tricky thing unless you're experienced, right? Or you've got someone who's done it before. So this tool, this repo, which if I get it up, this one here, this repo contains a React app that helps you effectively start that process. And so I built it, and when you run it, voila, you get this is the opening screen, okay, and it walks you through some intro screens.
First of all, I can't believe you built a React app, but
I know. I'm on fire today, aren't I? So it's got a nice little intro. It tells you about the features of the application, how to use it, and let's close that. And then effectively, this is the actual application. So we can go through some examples, and these are sort of like the examples it comes with, and you can actually create your own. But I mean, I think this is really, really amazing, right?
And does it get the examples from security frameworks like SOC or
I don't know. That's a good question. That's we should look into that, but I don't know. I think more at the moment is more from the point of view, because it provides some examples. It's maybe like helping you to think about that initially. But if you if you're in this space, give it a go, and then feedback to the project what you like, and maybe what you would like it to have. Again, that's the beauty of these projects, right? So that you can feedback what you like and what you don't like. So that's the second project. I do want to sneak a third one in though. So
go on, man. I did
before. Yeah, you did exactly. The third one is something I didn't know about, and that's doing integration tests with CDK. We mentioned the poll. So again, if you joined, we're doing a poll for your favorite infrastructure as code solution or go-to solution. I use CDK, and I wasn't aware that there's effectively a tool within the CDK repo that allows you to do integration tests. So basically, this repo provides an example of how you can do that, and it has a simple Lambda function with DynamoDB and SQS. And there's an integration test folder, and what it does, it basically creates effectively a duplicate stack, does its tests to make sure it's working before then letting you know. So I need to. Nice. I'm going to experiment with this with my own, because I use CD stacks at the moment, but I tend not to do any of these integration tests, and I would love to see how this works. Right. So I think this is definitely going to be something that I'm going to be checking out. So those were my 3 projects of this week.
Can I quickly, Rick, add in something? Mathem Codes is put a link to a project called Charm Bracelet. I've never heard of this before, but check it out. It is super cool.
Charm Bracelet. Okay, hang on. Yeah. Hang on. So Charm Bracelet, if I remember rightly, is this something to do with creating animated GIFs?
Yep. It is.
Yeah. So I do know this, and I know about this because one of the people in our team, Jen Looper, who heads up our student advocacy, she mentioned it in a post recently that she has. Yeah, it's the VHS one. That's exactly the one. So so thank you for sharing that. I have actually seen this, and actually I've got as we all do, I have an open. I've got an open Chrome tab, right, with it on, because I want to basically do something with it, right? So thanks for that. Okay, so
cool.
We've had a look at the projects. Let us know what you think. But now it's my favorite part of the show, Derek. We're going to bring on our guests. So that means I need to do... Yes! Lars, hello, welcome.
Hello. It's still not centered.
It's not. For anybody watching, Lars is the first guest to ever point out that the title in our transitions isn't centered. There you go.
Exactly.
And that's it. So see you later.
Yeah. Your work is done. Exactly, that's right. Yeah. Okay, cool. So Lars, welcome to Build on Open Source. The first time you've been on the show, but obviously not the first time your projects have been on the show, right? We have featured your projects from probably from the beginning. I think from the very beginning. I think, in fact, it's almost like it's not a proper Build on Open Source show unless we've got one of Lars's projects on here, right? So it's getting that way. So obviously, we feel this is your spiritual home in a way, So for those people who are joining us, can you give us an introduction?
Yeah, sure. So, well, I'm Lars. I've been coding since I was 12. At the moment, I'm at the leading online grocery store, Mathem, in Sweden, where we jumped on serverless in early 2017 before there was much, before SAM CLI and all that stuff.
Yep.
Which led us to build a lot of the tooling ourselves, and that's how I got hooked on doing that. So to start with, I sort of built internally, and then I started putting out on Twitter, and it's quite fun to see the feedback I'm getting. So I'm very passionate about making things go faster for developers.
Yeah.
Nice,
What was your first open source project, Lars? Can you remember?
I guess that's when I was 12. My dad borrowed a computer from his work, and that had QBasic on it. So I think it was modifying QBasic gorillas to make the explosions bigger. And I think that's a common thing for many developers of my age. So if you think about nibbles and gorillas in QBasic, it was quite open source.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you use the word burrow. When we were having the pre-show, folks were watching. Lars and me have a connection to a town I grew up in. Actually, Lewington. It's a great place in the New Forest, and I used to borrow boats, and it turns out Lars used to borrow boats as well. Once, yeah. So borrowing is a heavy theme. So Lars, what are you going to be showing the folks today?
So I've been going through my old projects. I've been doing this for a few years now, and I thought we don't have time to look at all of them. I did something similar at the AWS Community Day in Helsinki last week, so I'm going to go on the same sort of tracks. If anyone came to that talk, they can go back to work now. So I'll do like a mini version of that, which is focusing on step functions. But first of all, so last night I put together there's a landing page where I summarize all the projects I work on, that one, where you can filter by use case, so you can quickly find the right tool for what you want to work on. So I'm going to start on that. I should share my screen then, should I?
Yeah, that would definitely be a step in the right direction.
So that one.
Okay.
There we go.
There we go. Add to stream.
Wow, that's the wrong one. Sorry.
It's all right. It's okay.
We practice this.
Yeah, we did practice, everybody. We had a lengthy practice before the show. We are professionals.
There we go.
So this is what it looks like. I don't do any React, but this is all ChatGPT. It took about 20 prompts to get doing this. So it's fetching all the repos from the two GitHub organizations I do work in. It's MH Labs, which is the open source phalange of Mathem, and it's my own private one. And then it sort of creates these filters based on the labels on the repositories. So today we're going to focus on step functions. So I click on that one, I get these three tools.
Nice.
And the reason why there are three different ones is because they fill different use cases. We have the CLI tool, which is a way to integrate with your state machines from your command line prompts. And then the SFN Workflow Studio Sync is a Chrome extension to create a real-time application composer like sync between step functions and your local file system. And the last one, I might touch on that if I have time. It's just autocomplete for when you sit in VS Code and compose your ASL. So it's autocomplete for the SDK integrations in step functions. Anyway, let's jump over to VS Code. And I've prepared this a little bit.
Okay.
So I'm not going to focus on building an advanced state machine because that's not important. I'm going to do a simple state machine that gets an item off a DynamoDB table and sends some events on to SNS.
So Lars, before we dive into demo, for folks who are watching who may not be overly familiar with step functions, how would you describe step functions to people?
It's a workflow that lets you orchestrate your application in like a state machine. That's...
Right. And a state machine is effectively what you want basically the steps of your workflow. Is that right?
Exactly. You give it an input and it goes through a variety of steps. It could be parallel steps or for each loops, map states, and then it produces an output.
Okay. And then these state machines are effectively expressed as what you're showing here as effectively YAML files. Is that right?
They are, or JSON. I think
JSON.
most, if you go on documentation on GitHub, most of the AWS samples use JSON for some reason. I've done a poll once on Twitter or somewhere and shows that everyone wants YAML.
Okay.
That's why,
Also, Lars, isn't there in the AWS toolkit on VS Code, you actually visualize these as well? Do you have that installed? Have you ever seen that?
I believe I do, but I don't have a state machine, right? Yeah, I have it installed, so we can have a look at that later.
Yeah. Just curious, different ways to look at a state machine. Sorry, a step function.
Yeah. So what we have here now is a DynamoDB table and a topic, a test topic. I'm going to connect these through a state machine of 2 states. And I'm going to use the native SDK integrations, which is I think it's 9,000 plus different SDK actions you can use, and it maps really well with the Node or C#, all SDKs apart from Boto 3, syntax-wise.
Right.
So let's start with looking at the SFN CLI tool. And it does a bunch of things. There we go.
Okay.
The first command I added this was build, which lets you through CLI build a state machine with the native SDK integrations,
Nice.
which is not the nicest way to build state machines, but it was fun to build.
Yeah.
Then the console one, it's a way to let you. It's one of the things that what motivates me to build this is I'm getting older. Whenever I switch context, I find it hard to get back into where I was. And if I want to go from composing a state machine here in VS Code and then find it in the AWS console to debug the steps and stuff, the way it's designed now is I have to log in, I have to go to step functions, I have to find the state machine, and then I'm there. The console one will parse your template and sort of launch you to that state machine without you having to do anything. In it, I'm going to use that first now. That adds a state machine to an existing project. And then we'll look at policies, which will generate the IAM policies based on what's in your ASL file.
Oh, that's super handy. Yeah, that's really cool.
The SAM CLI, the official one, has a command called SAMsync or SAMaccelerate, which is designed to work as a hot swapping, like you sit locally and then it will just hot swap your ASL with the cloud. But it works, but not if you use what's called definition substitutions, where you pass references from your SAM template to the ASL file. Then it doesn't work. The sync command here does just that, but it actually works. So let's start with adding a state machine to this template.
Apologies if I missed this. So this tool SFN, okay, that you created, right? So what? This is a tool because you there was a gap. You wanted a CLI tool to do this, right? And it didn't exist. Is that? Yeah.
The first command I put in was the build command, and that it will prompt you to add SDK integrations to an existing state machine. It's not very good. It's there for legacy reasons. It's fun to play with.
Okay.
I would not use it to build state machines.
Okay. You heard that here first.
Deprecated.
SFN init command does this. It lets you point to the template file and the ASL file. It will use default values if you don't add them. And you can also pass an event source. So if your state machine is triggered by, say, EventBridge API or schedule, then it will create that for you as well. So I can, for example, I can do, I will add the state machine right into your template with that event trigger down here.
Oh, yeah. Wow, that's cool.
We don't need that, so I'm going to remove it. Like that. And what you also got was a state machine YAML, which is here, which is just a dumb state machine. It says it starts at start state, and all it does is a pass, so it doesn't do anything. Now I think I prepared this, so it's already deployed. But let's have a look.
So what's it doing now? What are you actually? The command is deploying this state machine into step functions.
Exactly. So when I run SAM deploy, it will package my template and use CloudFormation to deploy it to AWS. Now it says no change to deploy, and this is because I cheated before this and deployed this to save some time.
Okay.
Now let's go to the AWS console to have a look at the state machine. And for that, I will use the sfn command. If I had more than one state machine in my template, it would ask me which one I want to open. But now I only have one, so it goes straight to it.
Ooh, we like.
Yeah, so it got straight to this state machine now, and we can look at the definition. And this
is missing. Like it.
Yeah,
like it.
So now I saved maybe a minute or two of logging into your console. But if you do this a lot in a week, those minutes or two.
Yeah.
And more importantly, you don't lose the context, because when you log into AWS console, you might get some other alerts on the front dashboard, which will take your focus off what you're working on. Yep. So let's go in and edit this one. And this is a bit of a weird behavior of this page, because if you click edit, you get to this page where you can edit it. But you also get this button, where you can edit it in a much nicer way. I have a feeling that's a bit of.
We like to provide options at AWS.
Yes, either like if you want to edit it the hard way or the easy way. So jumping into Workflow Studio, and I've always been sort of against drag and drop development, but this is actually really nice. This is
why, Lars? Why have you always been against that drag and drop development?
It never works.
Because I grew up thinking that my skill is writing code. It turns out it's not. It's building stuff. With ChatGPT and stuff, if you invest your skills in typing, then I think you need to rethink.
Right.
By the way, this lets me build stuff really fast. So I can, for example, add a parallel state, and in that parallel state, I can invoke a Lambda function. I can start another step functions execution, and then it would just run from top to bottom and execute these steps. Now, that's not what we're going to build now. So I'm going to remove that. What they expect us to, how you expect to work with this tool is to build this thing, and then you do an export of the YAML or JSON definition. Then you paste this into your code editor. You make the changes. You deploy it, which takes time. Then back in here, make changes. When you do that, you've lost all the. You get ARMs for all references you might have to your SAM template, which it's not a good developer experience at all. Just before reInvent, they released Application Composer, which is a drag and drop, very similar thing where you can build SAM or CloudFormation templates, and you can link the UI with your local file system. So I spoke to Ryan Coleman and team, and I was like, how do you do that? I didn't understand that there was an API called File System Access API. I thought, well, we need that here. So I did this Chrome extension, which you can find on Lars.tools, which adds this button. So that's not there by default. That's the extension adding it. So if I click that one, it brings up an open file dialog. So now I create a sync between, and this is important to pick the right file, because when I demoed this in Helsinki last week, I picked the wrong file and it broke.
Oh no!
So I pick the state machine YAML, and you get this just to allow it to write. And now this is a bit tricky to demo on a non-wide screen or on just one monitor. So I'm going to try anyway. So I pull this to that side, and I pull this to that side. Here's my state machine, which, now it's updated with this. If I want to insert a parallel here, then I get that. I can.
It's updated. We saw it. Yeah.
Sometimes you have to click the force sync button, and you get it straight away in here.
This is magic. This is magic. This is absolute magic. So how's it doing it? How are you doing that?
I spent hours trying to understand this, the DOM on this side. I think it's a mix of Angular and React or something. And I'm not a front-end developer, so I'm not good at that stuff.
All right.
But I was looking for like somewhere they need to hold the state of the JSON file, and they do. So notice when I this is so tiny. If I add say a wait state here, look at the right panel over here now. If you get
right.
so it does a click on the definition where you have the whole JSON document, fetches that, and then converts it to YAML and
Okay.
pushes it down to the file system. It's hacky, and I built this not because I want it to be a long-lived project. I want it to serve as inspiration to AWS to build this natively. Because my dream way of using Workflow Studio is not in a console. There's no reason why I have to log into the console to use this one. I want that as an extension in VS Code or Ride or whatever you use, and then have this a two-way sync, so you can just drag and drop or change it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so I've been trying to make this two-way sync here, to make changes here to update this graph. I don't think it's possible. I've spent way too much time on it.
I was going to ask actually.
You didn't find out the secret sauce for Application Composer, because that does two-way sync.
Yeah, but I mean, it's probably possible if you have access to the uncompiled source. But I don't.
Yeah,
but the step function is
pretty awesome.
But I hope I wouldn't be surprised if there's something like this coming natively. So might be in a year's time, if someone watches this recording, it's gonna be, what is he doing?
Yeah.
This,
so,
cool.
So maybe if you're watching or either live or maybe on the recording, if you know how to do two-way sync in this way, then get in touch with Lars, because he would love to know.
Yeah, I would. Anyway, we were not going to build that type of state machine. We were going to build a DynamoDB get item. Then on the left side here, if I search for get item, this will go through all the SDK, supported SDK endpoints, which is almost all of them.
Yeah.
And I'm dragging a get item here, and I get this resource here. And the next thing we were going to do was to publish something on SNS. I'm not even going to try running the state machine. This is just for demo. So now we get this here, which looks all good.
Yep.
It's always good to press force sync every now and again. But what we get now is we have a hard-coded table name, my DynamoDB table, which doesn't exist. And we don't have a reference to the SNS topic, which we want to publish to. I have these resources in my SAM template over here. So I'm going to split this screen down like that now. The way to do this is to add a property down here called definition substitutions, which defines a variable, so to say, that which we pass to the state machine ASL that references the actual resource of the table. Because normally I never sort of explicitly name a resource. I let CloudFormation do that for me. So I don't know in my ASL what the name of the table will be. So there's another button called Link SAM Template. So if you use SAM, then you can use this button. And this is where I clicked wrong last at the demo in Helsinki. But now I'm doing the template YAML.
Wrong YAML. Too many YAMLs.
Yeah, too much YAML. And now I've created a sync between two files, the ASL file and the template file. So let's step into DynamoDB resource. And here you have this. God, this is small. Okay.
we are pushing the envelope here.
Yeah. Right. And the way you define definition substitutions is with a dollar curly bracket and curly bracket my table, call it. And this brings up the resources from my SAM template down here. So now it's pulled in a template and parsed it and put in a drop down. So I can find my table and ref it. And look what happens here now. Oh, it's up here. So I added that one.
Oh, yeah.
And at the bottom here, it inserted it as a definition substitution.
Well, that's really cool.
Yeah, we can do the same thing with the topic. Let's see. No, don't do that. I have to do it, add it as JSON. We have the topic ARN here. My topic. There we go. and then I pick the bottom one. That pops in there, and you have the topic there.
Cool.
Now, I would never click
Nice.
apply and exit because that's the wrong way of doing it. That's Derek's way of ClickOpsing.
For the win,
Yeah.
Lars. You know you want to. You know you want to.
There's too much of that in the documentation. So I'm just like cancel. I just close that one down. Leave. Yeah. Leave.
Okay.
Now let's bring.
So what you've done there, you've still got the files locally, but you've shut down the actual work, the designer, right? So, okay, good.
Exactly. Now
Pretty cool.
I'm going to try to split these ones like that. Cool. So now I have that locally. What we don't have now is, so we have the SDK actions here. We have the state machine here. This is not allowed to do any of this because by default it doesn't have any permissions. So you have to add the policies to allow this.
If only there was a tool that would allow us to do that.
Yeah, unfortunately. So I'm going to type that manually. No, I'm not going to type anything manually. It's a command called sfn policies, which will fetch this YAML file. Again, if you have more than one state machine in your template, it will ask you which one you want to generate the policies for. I don't only have one. It will look for all of these SDK resources, and it will add the policy here. So let's do it. Goes fast. Boom, like that. So you get the DynamoDB.
Oh, wow.
All you have to do here now is to fill in the resources here. I use Copilot for that.
Nice.
And that's that. Now, there's another thing we need to do. Now, after adding these definition substitutions, we actually need to deploy the template for the next part of the demo. So I'm going to do that quickly. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to quickly touch on the third tool. Remember, I had 3 tools from last year. The third one, which is a VS Code extension, which gives you what's called autocomplete for these native SDK integrations. Let's say I want to add a message attribute to my topic, which is like this sort of metadata you can send with your messages. I do control space there, and this drills straight into the SDK documentation, so you don't have to go on Google to find this and copy paste and have type.
Yeah, this is really cool.
So I pop into message attributes, and that's a map. So I'll just do a test. And then, I got GitHub Copilot interfering. It's also
I was going to ask. That looks very much like Copilot or Code Whisperer is doing that.
Yeah, I also have Code Whisperer, but I think it's disabled. Let's not dig into that. And I do string value.
No, let's not. Let's stay on target. Stay on target.
Now that's deployed. What we want to do now is the ID of the table or the hash key is the ID, not column. Might want to change what we pass to the message. That would normally take deployments through CloudFormation. So that's check.
Lars, this is almost Power Tools for step functions. Yeah, like it's
maybe
doing a lot of great stuff.
So SFN sync sets up a file listener on this file, and any change will be sort of hot swapped out.
Yeah, it's nice. I like this.
What it doesn't do is if I change the policies over here, that will require a full CloudFormation.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah. So, but now here we might want to send the item from the DynamoDB table instead.
Oh.
Yeah, and what this also does, it works as a validator for your state machine, because normally if I was to add an X there, then I break the chain between the next and the next state. This state doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And you get the instant validation down here. You would rather see it now than halfway through a CloudFormation deploy.
Hell yeah.
And I think that sort of sums up. So if I do this ID here, and I think this will work. I'm not going to try it. but let's jump into the console and make sure that the changes are made locally now actually is there. I would never use this against production, of course. This is against a test environment. Against production, it should go through a CloudFormation deploy. So checking definition.
There it is.
We have the ID instead of column there.
Yeah.
I can zoom a little bit for you. And we also have path item. It's all good.
That is super for developer productivity. Tick.
That's
tick,
amazing.
Tick and tick. That is.
Wow, that is really cool.
I'm actually speechless. That's.
I'm speechless now too. So I can leave the last 15 minutes for.
Let's just
chatting
sit and bask in the awesomeness.
So just to recap, so effectively what you've shown us, okay, is a way of effectively sort of optimizing, how you develop step functions locally using, your tool of choice, but also how you integrate that with using your Chrome extension, right? Using the step function designer. From the point of view of what I'm kind of interested in, obviously you've been working on this project and you're adding features. Where is it? You mentioned, you hope that these features get incorporated into the workflow designer, right? Is that kind of like from your point of view? Is that this project done then? Are you just leaving it as is, or are you thinking about new features you want to put in, or that kind of thing?
I think it depends on how the step functions team implements it.
Right.
Yeah, I have a feeling that they will do it better than I did. So.
Okay. High praise.
I mean, they have the power. They have the source code for it. I don't.
Yeah. And another question, we ask, obviously you do a lot of these tools, right? And the ones you've shown us today, what do you think you would have liked to have known now? At the beginning that you know now, right? Yeah, exactly. What would you have done maybe different? What was your kind of big learning points as you went through the project?
I think I spent far too much time trying to achieve the two-way sync. The initial, what I've shown you now, that took one evening to build. Then I spent almost in total a week trying to do the two-way sync. But
oh, really?
Yeah, I should be better at stopping that sooner.
You went down the rabbit hole. The rabbit hole opened up, and off Lars went.
I think that's just a personal bad behavior.
Well, I don't know. I actually find that. Well, yeah, we do, and actually, I've come to terms with it. Okay, I actually don't mind as long as I'm learning something in the journey, right? I think that's the key thing. But you're right. You don't want to spend too much time wasting it. But I mean, it sounds like that's quite a difficult problem to solve, right? So the question is that something useful that you think that would maybe carry on to other projects you're doing?
Yeah, maybe.
Sorry, Rick. Lars is obviously still scarred by the two-way sync week.
No, but I think one thing I did to mitigate disappointment, which I think is a good thing to do, I encourage everyone to build tooling around AWS services because we make them better. It's a good way to give feedback to the service teams, and B, it's a great way to learn that service because you get into the nitty-gritty SDK details around it.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
I did reach out to Dan Ronald, one of the managers of the step functions team, asking is this coming anytime soon? And I had no on that. So I thought, because I've done it before with when cognitive user pools didn't have CloudFormation support, I built custom resources to do that. Spent a few days on that. Then literally the day after we started using them, the official came. So I think it's a good thing to have that conversation with AWS to make sure that you don't waste time like that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good call, actually. And I do think there is value in like you say, creating these little tools to help you better get a deeper understanding of not just how to do it on AWS, but actually the problem space generally. right? Because you're probably in your journey you would have probably had a few different ways you could have done this, right? And so you're evaluating the best approach based on what you need to do, right? So I think that is a valid thing. I mean, I know that I think probably anyone who works in this area has spent too long trying to solve one particularly thorny problem, right? And then had one of your two-way sync moments. Okay, so
you've coined a new phrase. I think
yes,
you've coined a new phrase now, the two-way sync moment.
so I mean, this has been really good, showing us the step function tool. Obviously you've got a load of other tools, Lars, and we chatted about this very briefly. We showed your ChatGPT CloudWatch Insights tool last week. I'm going to say it did exactly what it's supposed to do, right?
I think we can work on the prompt a bit.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. So what's interesting, okay, so for people who maybe missed the show last week, Lars did a tool which allows you to effectively, in the same way, it's a Chrome extension that adds another button. You like adding your buttons into the AWS console, which is really cool. That basically, when you type in a ChatGPT prompt, it then basically creates the CloudWatch query string, which is something that I have always struggled with, right? Because I always have to go to the help, always have to go to the examples, because I'm never quite sure. So for me, it was a beautiful thing, right? Where as soon as I saw it, I thought, I've got to try this. And it works. It absolutely works. What's variable though is not your tool. It's the ChatGPT part of it, right? It's that you can't predict what it's going to give you. And I think that's the thing. You mentioned ChatGPT to create your last tools, it took 20 prompts to
yes, yeah, exactly. The last tools, I spent a few hours, but 95% of the time I spent trying to understand Amplify, because I was using Next.js 13. I don't know what I did in the end, but it started working after a while. But speaking of ChatGPT, got another one. How do I go back to my shared screen? Am I sharing?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you guys do it. Cool.
Yeah.
I got this other project which we use a lot, which is SAM Pattern CLI, which is sort of like SAM CLI on steroids. And that does, if I want to add a Lambda function triggered by a DynamoDB stream, then it uses ChatGPT to do that for me with, again.
This is interesting.
Yeah. I think it's because I have to give it a Q.
So SAMPAT, is this a new tool that you're working on, or is it something that what is SAMPAT?
Old. SAMPAT is short for SAM patterns. I added an alias for that because I kept mistyping it. So now, I'm looking at the state machine. So that inserted this Lambda function, and then you have to make sure you check it that everything is right. And you have to change the stream ARN and stuff. But
right.
So SAM patterns, that's actually the one I use the most.
Okay.
Let's see what I can do if we have time. It does a load of things. SAM CLI has the SAM init, which if you type SAM init, you get this. SAM pat init, which is same thing. It gives you this, and you can have your own private repositories with inner templates, or you can dig into the AWS managed ones.
Right.
It also lets you import patterns from serverlessland.com/patterns.
Cool.
And from local. So if I want a Lambda to S3, for example, then I can use that one.
No, I've not used that one.
Why not? Is it bad?
Yeah, you can use
if there's code, it would download it. Otherwise,
So you've actually you're using. Let me start again. So you using ChatGPT to basically create that piece of code. Then when you showed the first thing, that's actually using ChatGPT, is it?
The first one is using ChatGPT. The second one is just using the GitHub API to fetch stuff from GitHub.
Yeah, and I'm curious. Does it always bring back it close enough to the same code snippets, or is it always very, very random? Because that's one of the things I've noticed. Okay, is that I love using these tools, but at the moment, for the same prompt or similar prompts, I'm getting widely different, output. And which
it's not great. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes it's mind blowing. But I think it's good to have it in there because we can work on the prompts, because when I ask that question, give me a Lambda function triggered by DynamoDB string, I wrap that in more context before I send it off to ChatGPT. I think I need to work on that context better.
Yeah,
so that and then also GPT might get better with time as well. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah,
we'll leave it there to mature, I think.
Yeah. So Lars, as we draw to a close, okay, do you have like a call to action if people watching either live or on the recording? What we can share links, we can share the links to your repos, but do you have like any call to action? Do you want them to kick the tires of some of your projects? Do you want feedback? What kind of like what can they be getting on with? How can they help you in your open source projects?
They can definitely help me with issues. Depending on the project, some are easy to contribute to, some are messy. The Chrome extension I showed just now, it's a mess of a code. But definitely send issues over. I also work internally with my people at Mathem, because I build this stuff to solve problems we have at work. But I target the community for it, because I feel that's the way to stay on rails and not build like an echo chamber within the company. So I'm hunting for feedback from both community and internally. And if it doesn't work, tell me, because sometimes the way I work is that I come up with an idea and then I time box it to like one evening. And I tend to be quite keen to push it out just before I go to bed, and then send on Twitter. Then I wake up and check the reactions. And it has happened that I've thrown out like completely broken stuff. But if I didn't work like that, I wouldn't get stuff out, and that's what I recommend other people doing as well. Just do the MVPs, and then if that gains interest, then you can make something good out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so definitely.
Definitely time to ask Lars the
yes.
question of
the
day.
I nearly forgot that. Thank you for reminding me, Derek. So there, who's this handsome chap down here?
Oh, that's gonna be me then.
That's you. So Lars, okay, you walk into your favorite pizza emporium, okay. Do you ask for pineapple on your pizza, or do you not ask for pineapple on your pizza? Are you a fan or not a fan?
I mean, I don't mind it, but I wouldn't ask for it.
You wouldn't ask for it? Oh, that means you're in the no camp. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but it's not. I don't have strong feelings, so you can put me close to the middle.
Okay, close to the middle. Okay, that's good.
But more to that no side. No, not on the middle. But
I'll sit in the middle with Ian.
I'll put you up here.
Yeah.
I'll put you up there. There you go.
I can lean over and talk to those guys, but
you found your space. You found your place.
Very social.
Yeah, I think it's looking a bit busy on that side, which is a bit concerning for us. Pineapple on pizza. Board. I might need a bigger board. But Lars, it's been great having you.
Thanks, Lars.
We're gonna just wrap up now and do this.
Nice.
So next episode on May the 12th, we got a special guest, Romaric from Query, who's CEO. If you don't know what Query is, it's a really amazing open source tool. In fact, actually set of tools that allow you to very easily deploy your containerized applications, your Kubernetes applications onto AWS. So definitely it's going to be one to watch. Derek, I think we've got your poll as well. What's been the results of your poll?
So the poll that I needed to share and I've forgotten because I'm just terrible.
Yes. It's there.
Yes. So the poll, we didn't get many results in the poll this week, Rick, but it looks like Terraform is the if you're still on the chat and you hit a number, affect the poll. But so far, Terraform is the preferred way of using infrastructure as code.
I'm surprised BashScript didn't get any votes on that one because
well, ClickOps should be more, in my opinion.
So no one uses automation.
Well, actually,
automation's dead.
That's probably showing.
Yeah, exactly. No one's doing it.
GTP4.
Only 2 people responded apart from you two, though. So
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So we'll wrap up. Before you go, please complete the survey. This allows us to help improve how AWS supports open source. It's a very short survey. It will provide us valuable feedback that I can share with my internal folks. With that, Lars, again, thank you very much for coming on the show and sharing your wisdom and your projects. Look forward to sharing more of them in the future on the newsletter. Are there any parting words you want to share with the audience?
No, thanks for having me.
Brilliant. All right, in that case, with that, say goodbye. See you in 2 weeks for episode 7 of Build on Open Source. See you all.
Bye.
Bye.
If I can find out the outro.
Let's go to do it. Go.